Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I am Gunnar Eels, and welcome to another episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. Tonight, I am joined by Mr. Esoteric, Mr. Blanca Kong, and Mr. Hado Wolf. And tonight, we're going to have a triple threat for you. We're going to have three different articles, and we're going to discuss them and give our opinions on them. And they cover the gauntlet. We got two related to video game, or one related to a video game, one related to the removal of a video game, and one where we have grown adults fighting over a children's card game. So we've got the gambit. I like to call it my black pill in gaming segment, even though Pokemon is the card game in this specific one. But this is the black pill segment where it just goes wrong. So anyway, the first article we are going to be talking about this evening. Mind you, these are all Kotaku articles. Obviously, all of these will be linked, so you can read them and watch them at your leisure. So, first one we're going to be talking about is this is from Kotaku, and it is about the new and upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows game. So, the title reads: Disappointed fans inspired Ubisoft to create a canon mode for Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, I'm going to read a little bit of the article, and then after that, I'm going to ask these gentlemen sitting before me here, what do they think about it? What do they think about canonical stories in video games? Does like canon matter to them? Does it not? Is it weird if something is broken canonically? So that's going to be the format for you guys listening at home. That's how we're going to tackle it. So, after a few delays and leaks, yeah, that's that's something. Ubisoft's next main entry in the Assassin's Creed franchise, Assassin's Creed Shadows, is nearly here. And in the series first, it comes with a mode that removes many choices, instead adhering to one canonical, quote unquote, narrative path. Now, Ubisoft has explained why this option was added and also clarified that you'll still be free to kiss whoever you want, even if you pick canon mode, because that's what matters. When I play a video game, like, who am I kissing? But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, Assassin's Creed Shadows is set in feudal Japan, starring two very different protagonists. That launches later this month. When fans boot it up, they'll have an iconic choice to make. During your playthrough, do you want to make choices or not? You can play Shadows like most RPGs, choosing what to say to certain people to affect the outcome of a quest line or story arc. Or you can choose Canon mode, which removes such petty and frivolous choices. That's me ad-libbing. That's not in the article, by the way. And tells a set story created by the master smiths at Ubisoft. But why this previously confirmed canon mode? Why is it even in the game? Well, Ubisoft says it's because of fan disappointment, quote unquote, over the way all the dialogue options in the game, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla, prevented the creation of a single canonical record of how these stories played out. So, in a recent review with GameRant, creative director Jonathan Dumont talked about the canon mode in Shadows. According to him, while many fans have loved the RPG choices in recent AC games, others missed the fact that there was no longer a single agreed upon meta narrative. When we introduced the choice of characters and dialogue choices in AC Odyssey, many of our fans loved the idea. But some expressed their disappointment in not having a definitive canon narrative for the game that could be embedded in the AC lore meta story, said Mr. Dumont. After speaking with our fans during development, we decided to add a mode that takes out all the choices for Shadows that can serve as a reference story within the franchise. This way, players can enjoy the more RPG style of narrative or a more linear narrative if they prefer. And this is the last couple paragraphs, and then we'd be done. It's yet another example of how Ubisoft is extremely focused on ensuring that both old school AC fans who prefer linearity and stealth, and newer fans who prefer RPG flavored open world action, are happy when they play Shadows. For those who crave a more traditional AC experience, you can turn on instant assassinations, play almost entirely as a classic assassin Naue, I believe that's her name, and turn off all dialogue choices too. On the flip side, you can play the game like Valhalla and mostly fight your way through crowds of enemies with big swords while making hard decisions. This guy experienced through the game last year or earlier this year. In his opinion, Shadows truly feels like an Assassin's Creed game designed from the ground up to make all fans happy. However, regardless of whether you play in canon mode or not, Ubisoft will let you romance and kiss any romanceable character you desire. This was confirmed by Associate Narrative Director Brooke Davies while speaking to Game Rant. Because Naue and Yasuke are different people, they each have unique romance possibilities and connections, said Davies. None of our love stories is canon, so players can choose for themselves who or who not to pursue. And that was the article. So, basically, to TLDR that whole article for you guys listening and you guys on the panel, basically, this new Assassin's Creed is going to have two different ways of playing the game. When you start the game up, they're going to give you an option. Do you want to play this as an RPG where you have a bunch of your choices and you can be a dick, you can be a good guy, a bad guy, whatever, or do you want to play in what they call canon mode, which is they remove all of the choices. You have no choice. But if you play in that mode, you play the story that Ubisoft deems is the canonical story. So if someone dies and you're playing canon mode, they were supposed to die. If they live, they're supposed to live. So you can play either one of two ways. Now, my knee jerk reaction was to kind of like, this is fucking stupid. But thinking about it, I mean, it's a choice, and I'm not opposed to games having choices. Um, you know, so we just got off the back of after the filming of this, Monster Hunter Wilds is currently like the number one game, and all of us in this panel are playing it at their respective pace and um and leisure, and all of us have very different feelings towards the story mode that they added in Wilds. I'm not going to rehash it. If you want our initial impressions, check out that video. But I don't necessarily think it would have been a bad thing if a choice like that would have been given for a game like Wilds. Do you want to play the quote unquote story mode where it has cutscenes and the walk and talks and all that stuff? Or do you want to play classic Monster Hunter where it's just like, hey, hunt this Rathalos because he's being a dick, and you go hunt the Rathalos because he's being a dick? I don't know. Yeah, I would have appreciated if there was a choice like that. Most people would say like, well, you should either make the game one way or the other. I don't know. I don't see choice as a bad thing, so I don't necessarily dislike this whole inclusion of canon mode. And I think the reason why they added it, which I'll let you guys know, which I found this out recently, because I was just watching a video about it. So apparently for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for those that don't know, you could pick between a male and a female character. In that game, they were brother and sister. So the way it worked is whoever you picked would be the final boss of that game. So if you picked the sister, you would fight your brother, and if you picked the brother, you'd fight the sister, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, so fast forward to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, due to story things, that character who was a Spartan who lived in the ancient Greek times, due to mystical magical bullshit that Assassin's Creed ended up having, lived into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And a lot of players were very shocked to find out that it was the sister that greeted you in the game, which meant that canonically you were supposed to pick her as the main character.
Wait, Gunner, I think you mean Odyssey. I think Valhalla was the Viking one.
No, I do mean Valhalla. Yes.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
the main character from Odyssey shows up the main character from Odyssey shows up in Valhalla.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
So due to story conveniences, she gets like a mystical item that allows her to live longer. That's why she's alive during that time. So what people
Okay.
found out and what people got annoyed is even though they picked the brother, that inclusion of the character in DLC made it so canonically the sister was the correct choice. kind of invalidating the whole reason to prick brother and sister. So apparently that annoyed people.
Okay, I
Um,
misspoke because I just thought about the covers. Didn't play any of them, so thanks for the
yeah,
clarification.
yeah. So the last one I played was Odyssey.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, like I recently found that out, and that's probably why they added this whole canon mode. So there is no confusion or potential, I guess, upset about, oh, I play as this person, or I play as Naue, for example, and it turns out in the next Assassin's Creed game, Yasuke is the canonical main character. Because it'll feel weird if you never played Yasuke, you only played Naue, and all of a sudden, up, he died somewhere along the story, and Yasuke really is the main character, or vice versa, depending on how they want to do it. So anyway, that's the reason why canon mode exists. And I'll just make one more point before I pass it off. Um, so I'm a guy who plays a lot of JRPGs and RPGs in general, and I do value canon in a storyline and in my media. So I value when things carry over from previous entries. So if I'm playing, I'll use one that some of us here play and know of, the Persona series. So Persona 3, 4, and 5, just to narrow those down, all take place in Japan. And the canon is that certain characters, that you start as a high school student, and eventually these characters graduate. And you see some of these characters, like you'll see characters from Persona 3 in some Persona 4 media. And then the biggest example
Okay.
is in Persona 5, you will see an advertisement for a singer in Japan who was your navigator from Persona 3, Persona 4, sorry. So that's canon. That's an example of canon. And I do appreciate that because that means that even though your world is fantasy and made up, there is some structure to your world. Your world isn't just some nilly willy thing where things can happen and things may matter and they might not matter and things of that nature. So I do appreciate canon, and it does, from my weird brain, it does bother me if I play something and it's not canonical or it doesn't matter, because it's like, well, not to invalidate the fun I had with the game, but if I'm going to play a continued series and the choices and the characters that I picked don't matter, it just rubs me the wrong way. So, okay, that's how I feel about canon. So, I've talked enough. I'm going to pass it off to one of you gentlemen. What do you feel about the article? Do you feel anything about the article? And then the secondary question, as far as canon in video games or movies, because this is also a movie thing. There are trilogies in movies and whatnot. Does that matter to you? Does it not matter to you? Is it whatever to you? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So I will now pass it off to you guys.
So I'll quickly go first because I think my point is going to be probably one of the shorter points. Um, so I don't care, right? Like that, I feel like that's plainly obvious to anybody who knows me. I don't care. Story does matter to some people. Like Gunnar, you said that canon does matter to you, and it matters to me if I care about the story. So I get it. I just think this is just another Hail Mary attempt at trying to procure as many people as possible to give Assassin's Creed Shadows a chance because Ubisoft has screwed the pooch when it comes to a lot of things, including the Assassin's Creed IP. So this to me is like it comes off as very desperate and very pandering instead of it being like a love letter situation where they're trying to appease as many fans as possible. Because in an alternate universe, if Ubisoft was doing just fine and Assassin's Creed Shadows wasn't getting the negative press that it is receiving right now, I could see this canon mode being a DLC thing you have to pay for. So
Good point.
that's how I feel, and that's kind of cynical and negative. And it may not be true, right? There's no way to verify that. That's just my wacky prediction. I don't know, but uh, what I do know is that Ubisoft is in dire straits right now, and those Assassin's Creed fans have a lot to be worried about. One of the last things they should be worrying about is like canon for a game that's coming out, and more so the longevity and the existence of the IP to begin with. Whether you're a classic Assassin's Creed fan or a more modern Assassin's Creed fan, modern and classic being you're the I guess a classic fan would be like more stealth based, and a more modern fan would be more action RPG based or whatever. Wherever you land in that spectrum is relevant. What's relevant is whether or not this game is going to do well enough to save Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed. I don't care personally. I played the first Assassin's Creed game and I hated it. And I also played Black Flag and I thought that one was pretty all right. And that's kind of it. I didn't even play Assassin's Creed 2 because I had a bad taste in my mouth from the first one. But I know that there are people who love Assassin's Creed. I know people who have named their kids Ezio. I know people who have Assassin's Creed tattoos. There's a big fan base there. So I get it and I feel for you, because if this was happening to Resident Evil, which not long ago, that it wasn't looking too hot for that particular franchise.
That's
So I get
true.
it. So I sympathize. But unfortunately, it's tied to a company that I don't respect and that I've grown to dislike a lot. So yeah, to me, like my knee jerk reaction is, oh well, nice try. It may work. It's probably not going to work. But for those that care, it's there, and options are good, I guess. Um, and you mentioned Monster Hunter. If they had the option to just turn off the story, I probably would have turned off the story and just watched the 10-minute recap video, and it would have had the same effect. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. So
All right, right. Good points. Because there are people that feel like that they don't care about story mode and they just want to assassinate or do cool samurai tricks and be a ninja. So again, like the nerd in me is like, no, you should care. But it's just like, you know what, man? Hey, look, play the game, have fun with it. If you want to pick canon mode and not have to worry about the choices, pick canon mode. But yeah, you are right about AC Shadows in particular. It's it was mentioned in the article the game leaked. The game did leak. The full game is out there. People have played it. Not a early access build, not a demo build, the actual 1.0 build of the game. So, needless to say, this game is in a
and I
rough
do have one
state.
more point to add, and this is like
Over it.
I think it's relevant. So this is I want other developers and publishers to take notice. This is what happens when you spread your franchise too thin and you try to put your hands in too many jars, chasing dragons and shit, trying to make everything open world, or trying to make everything like an RPG, or trying to make everything, live service or whatever, free to play or whatever. Now they have a split in their fan base, and now they run the risk of pissing off half or maybe more than half, depending on which route they take, more than half of their fan base, which can directly affect sales. Because I remember specifically Assassin's Creed Mirage came out last year. Yeah, it
Yes.
came out
Sometime last year.
a year and a half ago. Came out 2023, end of 2023.
Oh, okay.
That game came out and it did not perform particularly well. It went on sale. I know it's a meme, but it went on sale within the first month of launch. And it didn't go on sale because it did that well and they felt like being charitable to their fan base. It went on sale because it wasn't performing and they were trying to make as much money as they could as quickly as possible before the game became yesterday's news and nobody would buy it anymore. And that game was a return to form, and it played more like a traditional Assassin's Creed game from like the PS3 360 era, and the game tanked. It did not do well at all. And I've spoken to people who bought the game who are Assassin's Creed fans, and they hated it. Yet these are the same people that would say, "I wish Assassin's Creed would go back to." You cannot like satisfy everybody. It's impossible because even people don't know what the fuck they want. So be careful when you start. We should change this and make this more like it may look good in the short term, but in the long term, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. And Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed is feeling that shit right now with canon mode, which is like crazy to. It's crazy to me that that's even a thing, but whatever. Anyway, that was my last point.
Fair enough.
I too agree with Kong's point, where for me personally, I don't really care. And I think it's really mainly because of two things. I don't care about Assassin's Creed. Never did, never will. Sorry. But also at the same time, I've desensitized myself to that kind of situation because I'm a JRPG player, and there's plenty of JRPGs out there where your main character or the character you choose to play with isn't necessarily canonly or
Canonically.
Canonically, yeah.
canonically, I can say that word, is not necessarily canonically correct for the story, or even characters that you collect amongst the journey um, isn't necessarily, like main characters of the story. For I can give an example, like the true protagonist for red and blue version of Pokemon is red, but you can still play as green and in fire red and leaf green, but that isn't the true canonical main character. Whereas I think in Emerald, it's Dawn that's the true canonical main character. I believe that's how it goes.
Yeah.
But um, but there's many RPGs where you get to pick whether you want to be boy or girl. Fire Emblem, I think it's female Corrin that's actually
Correct.
um right, that's the actual canon main character. It's the female Corrin, not the male Corrin. So for me, it's like I've been in this situation so many times before that I won't say that I don't care, but I understand that when it comes down to the story, it has to narrow something, especially if they give you the option of changing your gender or changing your point of view on how the game is going to be played. That for story purposes, if they're going to continue that story, they're going to pick one side. If they cannot make it as general as possible. Um, so I think I feel bad if you're the kind of player who's really story driven, because for some people treat video games like a book, right? Or like a good movie, where they play the video game specifically for good story or for the story. Um, I know people who love God of War, not necessarily because of the gameplay, but because of, it being Greek mythology. So they love that. And for them, playing as Kratos fighting all the gods is a new book that they can read or AKA play. Um, so I mean, if if you're listening to this and you were one of those who are upset because the character you want to play as isn't canon to the story, there's a lot of video games out there that you could be playing, and you're gonna find out half your damn cast isn't canon to the story. It's like they're just there as placeholders to keep the story going, or they're there because the that's just the way RPGs work in general. And I also agree with Kong is that if they weren't trying to please everyone, then their video game will be more grounded. It doesn't sound like they're very grounded with their video game. Like again, let me go back to Fire Emblem, right? Fire Emblem was split into two halves as well in terms of game mode. One was classic, and the other was what's the other one called? I won't
Uh,
call it
Casual maybe or something.
casual.
it
There you
was
go.
called casual, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
called
You're
casual,
right.
right? But that changes the game on a gameplay level, not necessarily a story level. It changes the game on a gameplay level because if you played on classic and your character dies, your character dies. That's it. It's either you restart or you continue on without, whoever is the character that died, unless it's the main character. Whereas a casual, if your character dies for the map, that's fine. You can beat the map or reset the map and your character comes back. But that was done on a gameplay level, which I think helped boost more people into the video game or into that kind of franchise for Fire Emblem to strive as the way it did. Um, and I think that's really nice because our friend Zeta, who loves the classic style, can still play the same Fire Emblem I'm playing. And maybe I'll choose to play on casual where he'll choose to play on classic, but a conversation can happen there. So when you change it in the story mode, I mean, for me, it's like I can still have a conversation with someone who plays as the girl. If I played as the guy, or if I play as the girl, then they play as the guy. I can still have a conversation. I really don't care if my character gets deleted in the next game, or like the guy never really existed, guy. Sorry. Like I don't really care, right? Like because I got to play the game regardless. But um, it's not something I haven't seen before. It isn't something that I haven't I've experienced this one, two. Um, it's play a different game. I don't know what to tell you. Like
Oh
play a
my
different game, I
God.
guess. I don't know. But I like for me it's just like it's so over. I'm like I it's so over my head, or I really it's like this whole situation to me is just like this is nonsense. In a sense, I don't really care. I don't really care for the complaints or the gripes, but definitely the company needs to make their video game more grounded and give people, because if they just introduce the story as just the girl, if she's supposed to be the canon, if they just introduced her as just the girl, like that's the only character you can play as, then just do so if you know that, But again, trying to please Tom, Dick, and Harry, knowing that each and every one of them have different mindsets, you're not going to really be able to create anything that's grounded. Like if I tried to bake a cake, and for I don't know, for six people, one likes strawberry, the other likes blueberry, another likes pineapple, another likes an orange, and I put all of that in the cake, that cake is not going to taste very well. It's not going to taste very good because I'm trying to please everyone and put a little bit of every fruit inside that cake, and it's just going to be a bad recipe. And maybe that's what that game faced. I don't really know, but for those who got their character deleted because they chose to go through the whole game, play the game again as the girl, and you'll understand both perspectives. If you like Assassin's Creed that much, you'll understand both perspectives now.
Well
That's
said.
my point.
No, that was good. All right, Esso, you're last on the hit parade. What say you, sir?
I
Because you're the one that, out of all four of us, that will play this game. It's safe to say,
mhm.
me, Wolf, and Kong are not playing this. So, what say you, sir?
Yeah, I figured I'd be the only one here that would actually play the game. For the sake of time, I'm gonna, be as quick as possible because we do have two other topics to cover. Um, so I've played Assassin's Creed 1 and 2. I thought they were, decent games for their time. Um, I I personally enjoyed them. They were a bit repetitive, but for their time, it was tolerable or whatnot. And I also would like to preface that I am someone who prioritizes gameplay. However, to me, story is icing on the cake. Um, in regards to what they're implementing, I can't speak on as to whether their intent was genuine or disingenuous. I can't speak on that. No one will never really know. However, I think it is a welcomed attribute because there are like people who are not so much into stories when it comes to games, yet they want to just play the game. Like the meat and potatoes, that's all they care about. They don't want any rice, they don't want any carbs. They just well, potatoes is carbs. They don't want any extra, on their plate. They just want to play the game, right? So I think that's a welcome attribute to have in the game. Me personally, I wouldn't do that because of how story driven I am, post gameplay. And the type of games that I'm accustomed to typically that has different choices, you tend to have different outcomes that befall within the game. So like for example, if you chose I think one of the games that did it was Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Depending upon the choices you made within the game, determined what path you took, which opened up new stages, which opened up, as far as I recollect, new abilities, and so on and so forth. I don't know how much Assassin's Creed this particular one is going to kind of divulge into. Um, but if they do happen to do that, I feel like you're missing a huge chunk of the game. Again, we don't know. We have no idea as to whether or not the having the canonical story option or having the RPG story will kind of deviate from the options that you have in the game, besides whatever interactions you have with characters. Um, but yeah, I guess, when I play, I'll just have to like find out and see what's going on. I don't mind playing multiple playthroughs of a game if it's good. Um, you know, back when we were growing up, in order for you to get the canonical version of the story, you had to pick the right choices and whatnot. And I felt that to be kind of fun. I was recently playing Nine Souls, and there were certain things that you had to do within the game to get the true ending. And I got the true ending by accident, just by playing the game. And I thought that was awesome. I was like, holy shit. Because I was streaming and I asked Gunn, I was like, hey, did you get this ending? Because typically those type of indie games have different endings. And he was like, no, this is not the ending that I got. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I wonder what ending got. And I researched it, and it was a true ending. So, speaking from an objectively point of view, I think this option is welcome. It deviating like or taking away from the gameplay, it all depends upon how expansive the game is that Ubisoft is going to present to us. Um, Honestly speaking, I've been on a Assassin's Creed hiatus. I've heard a lot of disparaging things over the course of the series. After I think it was Black Flag. I think the sequel after that, that's where the game kind of sort of plummeted for most people, from what I've been told. And this game speaks to my appeal of like ninjas and samurais. Like, I'm gonna get the Ninja Gaiden games, both of them. I'm gonna get Shinobi. I'm gonna get Onimusha. So this game kind of like piqued my interest because it has samurais. Yeah, call me simple minded, whatever. I don't give a shit. But I'm gonna give it a chance. Let me see how it goes. Yeah, that's pretty much my take on it.
Okay. Well, that was our first topic in our triple threat podcast tonight. So, second one has to do with Nintendo, everybody's favorite small indie game company. So, this article, once again from Kotaku, the title reads Nintendo Switch Online losing its first retro game proves why we need Virtual Console. So, this one is super short, so this will be quick. Nintendo is doing something the company has never done before. Next month, it will remove a retro game from its Nintendo Switch Online's classic catalog. Since launching the Nintendo Switch Online Classic service in 2018, the company behind Mario has never removed a game. Instead, it slowly built up a decently sized library of first and third party retro games from across multiple console libraries. However, subscribers in Japan will be losing a retro game in March, even if they've already downloaded it. On February 7th, Nintendo Japan quietly announced that the Super Famicom game, Super Formation Soccer, will be removed from Japan's Nintendo Switch Online service on March 28th. Nintendo confirmed that even players who have already downloaded and installed the game on their Switch consoles will no longer be able to play Super Formation Soccer after March 28th. At the moment, it appears that this title is only being removed from Nintendo Switch Online in Japan. In America, the game was released as Super Soccer for the SNES. So far, Nintendo hasn't announced plans to remove this version from NSO's classic catalog over here. That might be because while Super Formation Soccer was published by Chunsoft in Japan, worldwide the game was published by Nintendo themselves. So it could appear that whatever deal was in place to license the game is expiring soon in Japan, but that deal likely doesn't apply in regions where Super Soccer was published by Nintendo itself. So, while I, the author of this article, doubt there is a giant audience for Super Soccer on Nintendo Switch, it's still bad news to see a game removed from the classic catalog. Although games are removed from Game Pass and PS Plus all the time, people can still buy those games digitally. With Nintendo, these games are locked behind the NSO subscription service, and once removed, you can no longer play them on Switch. Just another reason why Nintendo needs to bring back the Virtual Console for Switch 2. So, I think out of the three, this one's going to be pretty quick because this is literally us digging the horse out of the grave to beat it again before we
Mhm.
put it back for now. Once again, example number 6402. Why betting all in on digital media is not the play. Okay, even from glorious Nintendo, which has to some people, a spotless reputation, is removing one of their games. Now, this seems to be a licensing disagreement between, or licensing expiration, and Nintendo doesn't feel like they need to renew it because, as the article stated, who's really chomping at the bit to play a soccer game on the Super Nintendo? I doubt very much. But this is just another example of if you go all digital, these games are not yours. You do not own them. You might give Nintendo $20 a year, but you do not own any of those Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, N64, and Sega Genesis games. You own none of them. You are renting a license to access those games, and that license can be revoked from you at any point in time. We've said this multiple times, and this is another example of now everybody does it. Microsoft does it, Sony does it, and now Nintendo does it. And as the article stated, what makes this particular case worse is that there is no alternative. So, for example, if you buy Killzone on the PlayStation Store and they remove Killzone from the PlayStation Store, or no, sorry, that's a wrong example. You have Killzone because you have PlayStation Plus, super crazy, whatever's the really expensive edition, Ultimate Premium Edition, and you play Killzone. You decide you don't want to pay that money anymore, and you don't want PlayStation Plus anymore. You can still buy Killzone from their store. It's a one-time fee of, let's say, $20, and you can buy it. You can't get it for quote unquote free anymore because you no longer are subscribed to PlayStation Ultimate, but you could still buy it and have it in your PlayStation library. But as we've known and as we've told you on this podcast numerous times, not even that safe. But unlike the Nintendo situation, you at least have that for Sony. Same with Microsoft, I assume. You can play a game on Game Pass. If it gets removed for whatever reason, you can still buy the game individually and play it on your Xbox or PC. So, once again, this is the whole digital thing. I do agree. I would like if there was a virtual console. If if you're gonna take these games away, I would like if there was an option to buy select older games on my Nintendo Switch. And this is not abnormal because the Nintendo did this with the 3DS.
Mhm.
They had virtual games. They had SNES, NES, GBA, Game Boy, and no, not DS. It went up to Game Boy. That's how I got to play Minish Cap on my 3DS. That's how I got to play Legend of Zelda Link to the Past DX. I bought it via the virtual network. And Nintendo does not have that for the Switch. Will they have that for the Switch too? I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't put it past them because I think they'd rather just collect $20 a year from hundreds of thousands of people as opposed to giving somebody a one-time option to buy F-Zero or something. So anyway, once again, the thousandth millionth reason why I know retro gaming is expensive and that has its own pitfalls with the third party market. But if you can get your hands on these games, great. And you should always support emulation. Nintendo will hate you for it and they will sue you if they get their hands on you. But this is another example of a game that could potentially be lost forever without emulation existing to keep it alive. So, again, that's my point. I know what everybody's going to say, but I will once again pass it to you, gentlemen. Um, what do you guys think? Does it suck? Just give me your thoughts. I know what they're going to be, but just your thoughts.
Okay. I'll go. I'll make it real quick. it definitely does suck. As you stated before, we've already beaten this horse several times over. It's tired. It wants to rest in peace. Um, I think what makes this even worse is the fact that this was the foreshadowing that we saw. We saw that they were able that they were going to pretty much remove the digital media from the root of your device, meaning that they, even though you have it downloaded, they can remove it that way. I mean, this was the precursor to the beginning, the whole digital narrative, and this is what we've been discussing. This is what we've been foreshadowing for time and time to come. Um, it's not like back in the days with the PS3 where you downloaded the PE demo and you still have it on your console so long as your console isn't wiped. No, now it's we don't care if you have it on your console, we can still take it away. And it's pretty alarming. It does suck really bad given the current climate that old school games are in, because I'm pretty sure in Japan, if you're looking for that particular game, if you're a soccer player, football as my country, or the West Indians will label it as, um, you're gonna pay a little more than what it's worth in order to acquire it, and it really does suck because if you're passionate about a particular game, this is the means in which you have to go through in order to procure said game. Um, yeah, this is only the beginning of the end. This is pretty much their plants bearing fruit, and it's only going to get worse in the future. So yeah.
I'll quickly go. So in 2012, Microsoft unveiled the Xbox One and talked about DRM. At the time, I didn't know what DRM was, but I do now. I know it very well. And for those who don't know, DRM stands for Digital Rights Management. It's a system of technologies and policies and processes um, that manage access to copyrighted digital content. DRM protects intellectual property rights and prevents unauthorized distribution and modification of content. Now, when this happened in 2012, the firestorm came for Microsoft, and Don Matrick, who was the representative of Xbox at the time, and he actually resigned because of all the hate that he was getting, and he was the scapegoat for to try and control the PR for the Xbox One, which we all know was a colossal failure and has carried over to the Xbox Series X and Series S today. Those consoles aren't performing up to snuff to where they wanted to. PlayStation is blowing them out of the water, even though the PlayStation 5 is a piece of junk. So in 2012, in the late 2010s, there was a shift, and companies started to realize that they didn't have as much control as they would have liked. And Microsoft and Don Matrick and the Xbox team at the time were the sacrificial scapegoats for testing the waters to see how the consumers would respond to something like this. And so they already ate that shit, but now the industry has changed enough and they've adopted enough new players, whether they be casual players or just up and coming players, kids getting older, that they have been conditioned and they've grown to accept these DRM policies as, oh, that's just the way it is. Where our generation, we were the ones bitching and throwing garbage at Microsoft in 2012. We're dying out, or people are leaving the hobby altogether,
Yeah.
and we're being replaced by casual consumers, fucking mobile gamers. Kids are growing up, and they're growing up in this environment, in this new video game environment. And so the companies are now cashing in those chips, and Microsoft is like, "Fuck, we should have just waited, right? So let some other dickhead do it, right?" And this is exactly what we're talking about. And to be charitable to Nintendo, uh, it's not because they're doing it for some greedy reason. It's, I mean, I guess you could say because they could just pay for the license again. But if the game doesn't have enough active users, it's like, is it really worth it? It's not really drawing people to the subscription.
Yeah.
So I get it from a business standpoint. I understand it. I'm not mad at Nintendo. I'm kind of mad at the individuals who kind of made the industry this way. I'm mad at those people. And I can't point my finger because, who's to know, right? Like there's so many people out there who hold some level of accountability for adopting um the digital revolution, I guess you would call it, that we're living in now. It is what it is. So my response to this news is that's it.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, yes, those individuals are to blame, but it's like hindsight is 2020, right? I guess they felt that the industry was going to be trustworthy in a sense of like if we're purchasing the games physically, if it translate over to digital, then we'll still have that ownership. We just won't have that physical aspect of said ownership. But they were wrong, unfortunately.
Stone
So
Cold Steve Austin taught me a lesson that I didn't really understand until
don't trust
until
nobody.
later in life. Don't trust anybody, and it's the fucking truth. So everybody in this world will betray you if the cards are lined up properly and the price is right. They will turn their back on you. Very few people will stick to you to the very bitter end. And companies are the first people or the first entities that you do not trust because
Yeah,
their interests and their motivations are just money and profitability. That is it.
yeah,
That's full stop. It doesn't go further. Yeah, there's individual cases where there might be a manager or supervisor or a coworker that really cares and is willing to sacrifice their job or position for the greater good, right? But most people will bend the knee. Most people will stab you in the back. We saw it happen with the 2020 virus, right? Where a lot of people were forced to take the jab, and a lot of people bent the knee. Very few people stood their ground and decided not to do it and sacrificed their careers to do so. Very few people did that.
yeah.
So it is that's a different situation. That's more dire and that's more but there are similarities there, and so
Of course.
it is what it is. This is the room that we live in now, and so this is the room we have to stay in. So I have my collection. I have almost 1,000 hard copy video games. I will continue to collect physical until I can't anymore. And when that day comes, I'll have more than enough to last me 2 lifetimes. So to me, it won't matter.
Yeah.
Very good point. Wolf, do you have any input on the matter, or everything was said that needed to be said? Let me hear you.
Everything said needed to be said. I am not one to really um care necessarily when it comes to DLC, when it comes to downloading a game versus buying a physical copy, depending on what it is. But I am very well cognitive of the dire situation that I am making, or the dire choice that I am making, buying a video game online on a PSN store or the Nintendo store. I'm buying the right to play the game. I am not buying the right to own the game. Um, but I also feel like if people do realize that and open their eyes and accept that if you're going to spend money on something, you should own it, then the market would be different. But much like Kang said, people are just the general mass, more for the most part, is just comfortable with the way it is, and I think it'll change when it really starts to affect them on bigger video game purchases. Maybe, you know, like think about it. If, say, Monster Hunter made $50 million from DLC, from people downloading it onto the PS5, and then for whatever reason, Sony decides to pull it, and people with that can't play it anymore. I think that's a bigger hit, which will make a louder argument versus, say, a soccer game that I didn't even know exists as someone who grew up playing Nintendo console games. Um, I feel, yeah, that's, I don't have an argument in this. It,
All right.
you know,
And you know what? I have one more little cherry to put
No,
on top
go
of
for
that
it.
sundae. So there are some, and there are 2 points. Point number one, I know somebody somewhere is going to be like, "Well, buying physical games doesn't always guarantee you access." I understand that there are physical games that are just fucking glorified launchers. I understand that the physical games aren't always what they claim to be. I understand that. That's point number one. Point number two, to piggyback off of what Wolf just said, I understand that there are people who literally do not care. And they're just okay with renting the game. They're just like, it is what it is. I'm not going to live forever. So what does it even matter? I'm not even going to play this game in 10 years. Who gives a shit, right? I understand that. However, if you're sitting in that boat, stay the fuck on that boat. I don't want to hear a fucking peep, a bitch, a moan, a fart in the wind about this is unfair. Shut the fuck up. This is what you wanted. These are the waters you swim in now. Love it and deal with it. And it's only gonna get worse. So accept that future and bathe in it and enjoy it, because that's the future you wanted. So that's it. Now you can move on to the last topic.
Well said. And on that note, last topic it is. So, this one's a lighter one, but also pretty depressing. So it's like, it's gray instead of black. So we're moving up in the world. Trust me.
Oh.
So this one is again Kotaku, and the title is Two Grown Men. Key. This is key here. Two grown men fight over who got in line first at a Pokemon vending machine. This is where we are in the year of our Lord 2025. So, the article itself. At 10 a.m., a restock of Pokemon cards led to an aggressive pushing and shouting match between two men inside a store in front of a card-selling vending machine. The video has since gone viral on everyone's favorite platform, TikTok. On March 5th, TikTok creator I'm Not Even Going to Try, so I'm just going to call him Y Official for the remainder of this article reading, posted a video clip where he claims shows him trying to buy Pokemon cards from a card dispensing machine after it had been restocked that morning at an undisclosed store in the San Francisco Bay Area. According to Mr. Y Official, the man seen in the video wearing a black hoodie, baseball hat, and white pants was waiting in his car for the restock and tried to push back Mr. Y Official to access the Pokemon vending machine. The two men pushed and shoved each other as seen in the viral video, which this article does show the video, and it is as they describe. The video was recorded by someone else and then shared by Mr. Y Official. According to a comment posted the creator on TikTok. In a follow-up video, you can hear the man yelling at what appears to be a store employee who explains they reviewed the footage before being cut off by the aggressive man in white pants. Y Official claims that eventually police showed up and arrested the other man. This is a quote from Mr. Y Official. He claimed being in his car was in line, said Y Official in a comment on TikTok. Cops came and got him and he fell out pretending to be hurt. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I said no. Kotaku, the article we're reading, wasn't able to verify the claims of police arriving or arresting anyone. They've reached out to Y Official for more information about the incident and what happened. After the clip went viral, people online reacted with confusion and disgust over grown men fighting over cars designed primarily for children. The two men are also believed to be Pokemon card flippers, leading to even more venom and directed at them. And this is a quote from an internet person. I'm sorry, but I was part of the generation that had my Pokemon binder out trading with my friends on the front porch, posted one user on Twitter. It's an absolute shame that this hobby has gotten so out of control. It is such gross behavior. So, this one is about scalpers. And I'm just going to let my feelings be known right off the jump. I hate scalpers. They are scum of the earth. I hope they all die in a horrible house fire. Sorry, not sorry. These people do not care about the medium that they are scalping. They didn't care about the PlayStation 5 when they scalped it. That's why they got sweet revenge when they did that shit with the Pro, and they're sitting with 6 Pros in their fucking mom's basement because nobody wanted the damn system to begin with. These are the people who are scalping Pokemon cards, probably Yu-Gi-Oh cards, more so Pokemon. These are the people that will beat you to tickets online, or if you're trying to buy something related to anime or video games, these are the people that buy out your collector's editions and then sell them on eBay and Amazon for triple, quadruple, quintuple the MSRP. Like, these are those people. So if you go on and buy a ticket to a convention or buy an anime item or a video game item and you lose the moment you hit checkout, it's these guys. Whether it's digital or in the flesh, it's these guys. So needless to say, I don't really care if it broke out into a street fight and they broke their nose, they cracked some teeth. I wish there was more than just pushing, because these people are fucking scum. This is a card game, and I know people throw around that this is a card game for kids. It's like, okay, sure, primarily, but it is enjoyed by a wide range and age of people. I know it's primarily designed for kids, but like everybody can enjoy it, and everybody should be able to enjoy it. But because of influencers, videos on TikTok, a new term I learned in researching for this particular topic is a category called rip and ship, which I didn't know was a thing until recently. Basically, TLDR, rip and ship is you will pay someone on a stream, like a TikTok live stream or something, and he will rip a pack for you, and whatever you're getting that pack is shipped to you. And these guys will charge exorbitant prices for these packs. Let's say $40 because it's a hot pack, and you might get that Umbreon card that's going for $1,000 something right now. And
Moonbrion.
Moonbreed, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that card is going for buku dumb money. Um, and you're relying on this internet person to be trustworthy, which Wolf showed us a video of some guy not being trustworthy. So you can't even trust that. Like, this is a whole scummy. I know, shocker.
What the
we're all
right? Like stupid
so
ass.
like these are the people you're dealing with. They are scum, and I can rant and rave about it for a while, but it's so just one more story before I pass it off to these guys, and we can all fucking proverbially, verbally beat these people over the head with a stick. I couldn't find any. I couldn't find the video that I saw from this, but there was one scalper who allegedly, I'll use that word because I couldn't find the video. He allegedly put a Apple AirTag on a stock like somebody who stocks those same Pokemon vending machines on her car, and he was literally following her around from Target to Target to Walmart, always seemingly being there to clear out these vending machines when she after she finished restocking them, and he was caught for that. I couldn't find any evidence of whether he was prosecuted. I hope so, because like we are taking this to extreme levels that does not need to be taken to. So anyway, yes, scum of the earth. I fucking despise these people, but I will pass it off to you two gentlemen. What do you guys think? I know some of us here actually collect Pokemon cards, and other various card games, so some of us know more about this world than others. I just think they're scum. Anyway,
I,
pass it off to one of you guys.
I guess I'm going to go. This article legitimately makes my blood boil. I mean, at its at the surface level, seeing grown men fight over what's perceived to be kids items or what is supposed to be created for kids items is hilarious. It should be funny or whatnot. You being a grown ass man fighting over cards should be hilarious. However, at its core, these are, like you said, the fucking scum of the earth. People who make a living off of taking the livelihood out of other people's pockets. And yes, people may argue, like, okay, well, it's their choice. They have the option to buy it or not. But it's like, come on. Like, you go to GameStop. Let's say, okay, perfect example. PlayStation 5 comes out. You want to get one for your kid. They did really well in school. They're doing everything that they need to do in terms of being a good kid, staying out of trouble, whatnot. Don't ask for much. They're very, very, appreciative of everything that they get or what they don't get. So you want to reward them. So you go to all these different stores, find out that these PlayStation 5s are not available, and then you find scalpers who are selling it for exorbitant amounts of like an exorbitant amount, right? You don't want to disappoint your kid, so you might be a little bit more inclined to getting that device for your kid. You know what I'm saying? You might break the bank a little bit. You might have to, take out of your savings. You might spend pretty much more than what you desire to. but it's worth it when you see, your child's eyes light up because you worked really hard to reward them for the things that they did. And these piece of shits are obstructing the ease of doing that. It doesn't even have to be kids. It could be yourself. You know what I'm saying? You want to escape from reality. You want to buy, my escape from reality is playing games. I want to buy a console that has like certain games that I want to play. And these asshats over here are buying it throughout all the different stores and making it a hard time for me to get these games. I can't even pre-order the shit because these assholes are using bots to pretty much take the place of actual users and stopping them from getting one. I wish that one of them crossed the vending machine. I wish one like slipped and fell and busted their tooth. Like I'm really annoyed with this. I really am because and it's not like they take these things and maybe be reasonable with the price. Like I can understand if you've purchased something and you decide to sell it, so you probably sell it for like a percentage that's reasonable, but it's like it's almost double. It's almost double. You're talking about like 200% of what it was initially worth, and it's ridiculous, man. Like I cannot express my full disdain for these types of guys. Honestly, I wish there was a way for companies to kind of like fix this. They've tried in stores where it's like, oh, the most you can buy is 2 packs. But then these assholes will come together and it's like, okay, so you wait in line. I'm going to give you the money to buy these other 2 packs. You wait in line. I'm going to give you the other. Like, they'll have their whole goddamn families in there buying it. So there's no real way to kind of counteract this. So it's just really sad. It's really disheartening that these assholes are doing what they do and there's nothing, absolutely nothing you can do about it, And I'm just going to leave it at there for the sake of time.
All right, I guess I'm up, huh? Not to be a scalper, like, what would you call it?
Scalper apologist, sympathizer.
Apologist or sympathizer was the one I was trying to find in my head. So, first of all, yes, these people are scumbags, for sure. Mm-hmm. However, I think these people get a lot of hate because it's very easy to hate them because you see them. I don't see nearly the same amount of energy around the true scumbags of the world, people who run multi-billion-dollar corporations are basically enslaving people to make the products that we consume on a daily basis. I don't see the same hate directed towards Apple executives or Microsoft executives or whoever when these people are literally enslaving people in other parts of the world in order to give us the products that we want at a price that we deem is fine or fair. Those people are the true scumbags, in my opinion. So to hate a guy who's just trying to make ends meet or trying to have a side hustle because of Pokemon cards, I get the frustration from a collector standpoint because I collect to a certain degree. I don't really do Pokemon at the moment because it's just it's pretty volatile right now. But I get it, and I've seen these people in action. Right, I used to manage a few stores, a few GameStops, and so I would see them, and it's like, wow, like what do we do about it? Right, there is nothing you can really do about it. It's just an unfortunate truth that when something blows up, and this is a symptom of technology and the internet, right, and social media, this was bound to happen. The moment something blows up, the quality and the access to that thing becomes scarce or lower quality, right? It just it doesn't become the same anymore. It's not like it was back in the 2000s or late 90s where you just walk into a card shop and just buy a few packs and that was it. That was just a thing you did, right? It can't happen anymore because too many people are involved in it and there's an opportunity to make money. So that's just a reality that we have to accept. And I would challenge people to expand your mind a little bit and think about, yeah, these people suck. True, I agree with you there, but I think there are bigger fish to fry, and I think we should be looking at other parts of society and really redirecting some of that passion that way, because those are the people that are walking to the bank laughing at the plebs fighting amongst ourselves, right? The consumer and the scalpers are just like, fuck that guy. I hope he breaks his face in the like, sure. What about the dickhead that's living in a gated community that is profiting the most out of anybody in that equation? What about that fucking guy? What are we doing about him?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
I'm gonna just leave that there.
I to kind of reply to that, I think that the disdain for them is pretty much like it's there. However, is due to the fact that it's more of an out of sight, out of mind type of deal. Like when we're purchasing things, no one is absolutely putting their mind towards like the people who are being treated poorly, who are making the products. And yes, you're absolutely right. They definitely should be, some type of repercussions. There should be some type of disdain towards corporals, which I do believe that there are. It's just that it's an out of sight, out of mind type of deal. I'm not saying that it's, wrong, but I do get your point about like a matter of perspective. It's just people are more inclined to see.
And you're right. And you're totally right. It is an out of sight, out of mind deal. And I get that. I get it. Of course,
Yeah.
I'm human. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think, so here's my solution, right? I think self-control is really important.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do, right? It's, especially with certain things that you're really into, right? It's real easy to eat a whole fucking carton of cookies, right? But it's a hell of a lot harder to be like, I'm gonna stick at 2 and I'm gonna just eat 2. That's hard. That's not easy. And a lot of people can't do it. Most people can't do it. So I get it, but I've learned that self-control is a superpower. Like once you master that and like you're able to just kind of stand your ground and stick to a principle, that shit is powerful, man. And if more people were able to do that, I think the world would be very different. And the corporate scumbags that exist that are profiting off of us, and the government officials that are fucking draining us and all this, not to turn it political, but like those people would not be as empowered as they are. And so if anybody listens to this, the 10 people that watch this podcast, if you hear this, I challenge you to just think a little further ahead. And I didn't have this mentality always. I kind of developed it and gotten it. I've kind of like molded it over the last maybe 5 years or so. So I'm no preacher here, but I want to pass that message along because I think it's important. And I have to constantly remind myself to kind of like take a few steps back and really like, well, is this a person I really need to like direct my hatred toward? And for me, I can be like pretty expressive and I can be pretty passionate. In a lot of times negative ways. Like sometimes I get really upset, and I used to have a bit of an anger issue, which still exists, but it is much more tame now, because of just like listening to other people talk and like reading certain books and be like, you know what, like I don't, and just kind of like certain things in your mind kind of click, and you're like, what the fuck was I thinking 10 years ago, 15 years ago? So I'm hoping that maybe me saying this will kind of like accelerate that for somebody else out there where, maybe there's a 20-year-old that hears what we're talking about and they start to mold their perspective a little bit and start to think about things a little differently. I think that's a good thing. And that's why, that's one of the reasons why I like doing the podcast, is because I get to kind of like put my ideas out there and maybe it'll help somebody or something like that. So anyway, I know we're going over time, so I'll shut up.
No, you're absolutely right in that regard. One thing about the podcast that makes it enjoyable is that it's also very, for the most part, informative, and we get to share different perspectives. Although, for the most part, we kind of have somewhat, unison perspectives on certain things. There are times where it's like, oh, okay, this I didn't know, and I always gain more experience and more information doing these podcasts. So it's absolutely appreciative, and I like the fact that it's fun, engaging, and we get to.
And one more thing, for those who are collectors of anything, the reason why I brought up the whole willpower thing and self-control thing is because you should develop the ability to walk away from a hobby if you feel like, you know what, this isn't for me anymore. And this is why I don't collect Pokemon at this. I love ripping packs. Are you kidding me? That shit is fun as hell. and organizing my cards. I love that. But you have to have the control. Like, you know what? No, this industry is taking advantage of me, or this, this company is taking advantage of me, or this product isn't at the quality that I need it to be. You know what? It might hurt to walk away from it, but you're gonna thank yourself later. So
All right. So, Wolf, do you have any thoughts on this? And we can.
Um,
I'll respond to what Julio said before, but I want to give you time to, because you haven't said anything yet.
Yeah.
um, I I see everybody's point of view. Um, I working in retail before. I've seen scalpers come in. I could tell you I worked at one store before where my manager and the scalper got into it because he wanted to buy. I think that's the year that the 360 came out. Was it that? What year did the 360 come out? Very long time ago.
Like,
Um,
oh, 05 maybe?
I think it was
Yeah,
oh
'05.
05.
Yeah.
Oh 05. Then it wasn't that. It was around my son was born in what, 2014? Whatever console came out a little bit before 2014.
that's had to have
Um,
been the PS4,
the
PS4, Xbox One.
PS4, right? So, anyways, the point is, I worked in the store, and the guy came in. He wanted to buy about six of them. He had the capital to do it. Manager told him no, one per person. He started to use, it's his American right to buy however amount he wants to buy. They went back and forth on what is constitutional versus what was store policies and procedures. It became a big thing on the line. Now, what annoyed me about it was not the simple fact that this guy wanted to buy six PS4s or whatever console he was buying. It's what annoyed me was about it is that he he the whole situation was in the forefront of everything that's going on right at that moment in the world, right? Like even at that time, the world wasn't a perfect place. But the situation I'm in right now is that this guy is holding up my line, and he's trying to inconvenience other people into because he wants to be selfish and then sell it to the very people who are behind him for a 100% upscale price. Um, and that at that moment is very annoying. It's very it is it's a very scummy thing to do. Um, as me and Khan grew up playing Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and we had to deal with scalpers of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We had to deal with. I mean, Khan can vividly remember a story that I raced a dude who was going to scalp the card. Um, all across Manhattan to another store to buy it to purchase a card that they didn't even know came out yet. So it's like when you're in a certain hobby and you have to deal with scalpers, it's hard and it's discouraging to want to keep going with a hobby. And hobbies do bring peace of mind to people. Um, it does bring a peace of mind to people. I'm not saying that Kong is 100%. I don't disagree with him 100% where he says that you need to have the mental fortitude to be able to change your hobby. But if the hobby makes you happy, it makes it that much harder to even change to begin with. Um, so there's nothing we can really do about scalpers. It's the negative that comes with the good of having a hobby. Um, no matter what it is, you deal with no matter what your hobby is, chances are you're gonna, especially if it's collecting, you're gonna deal with a scalper. So that's kind of like, you know, that's the good that's the bad that comes with the good. Deal with it. But I also definitely agree in the simple fact that there are a lot of things that we should be upset about. Like, for instance, every time a pack is sold, say a Pokemon card pack is sold, whatever is the company that's printing the cards, they make money off of that. I watch some of these videos, and some of these cards are being sold at $17 an hour. Some of these card packs are being sold at $17 per pack. That's a lot of money per pack, $17. Some is sold depending on how old the pack is. Some are sold at $500. Some are sold at, $700. And it's like the idea of the reason why the packs can be so expensive is because of the kind of rare cards you get. Well, stop printing the cards so rare. If it's yes, I understand that a part of it is collecting, but the TCG aspect of it too, you can have the cards that are not necessarily rare, but just a little harder to get, or a little less fancy, or a little less, extravagant, and or just reprint the cards, on the next every 6 months or so. Therefore, what will ultimately happen is that people will eventually stop trying to buy these packs to oversell, or to take advantage of the less fortunate in the community that is a part of that hobby. Konami did it for a while with the Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I don't know if they still do it now. I don't see Yu-Gi-Oh cards as expensive as I see Pokemon cards are. Like, to have one Pokemon card that's almost as expensive as a down payment to a car, that's ridiculous. But if they reprinted the damn card, that would drop the value dramatically. It will like people wouldn't, be so crazy about it in the long run of it. Um, that's just my take on it. I think everybody made a good point. Esoteric made a great point in it's easier to deal with a problem when it's in the forefront. Khan made a great point in, there's corporate companies that are taking advantage of people who are in less fortunate countries, and they have to work just to make ends meet, but they're really working on pennies. They're really working for pennies. And that is an issue that we should take, in a sense, that is a very big issue that we should all take accountability to when we're thinking about, okay, let's penalize this guy who he made a living, or he's trying to make a living reselling Pokemon cards or reselling collectible items, even if it goes by the means of scalping. Um, and then, I definitely agree with Gunnar when I say they're all a piece of shit. I definitely agree with him on that. They all
Yeah.
are a piece of shit. But yeah, that's my take on it. I wish it was a different world, or that companies would do something more about it to try and deter them away from it. But then that's also a hard crime to stop, because it's technically not illegal to begin with. It's just unethical.
Well said. Well said. So I'll just quickly address what Kong said because I had a response to it. It won't. I won't ramble. I swear. Um, Well, he is correct in the fact that there are bigger evils in this world, whether it's the multi-billion, million, trillion-dollar company or the shady government and whatnot. I agree. That is a real thing that happens. People are being taken advantage of. Slavery is alive and well in the way we know it in America and in basically wage slavery. That is a real thing. So I don't want to dismiss that or diminish that in any way, shape, or form. But my problem comes like I guess I'm looking, especially with this article, I'm looking at it from I'm not looking at it the grand sphere of things. I'm looking at this at the ground level, where I see two grown adults fighting in front of a card vending machine for a product of a hobby that they more than likely give two shits about. And
Yeah.
you might have a guy who's had a shit day at work. His manager's been on his ass. He might have been fired, and he wants to. This is his highlight to buy a Pokemon a booster that has a bunch of cards in it, and it's like I know maybe I should be spending this towards rent, but it's either this or the rope, and I want to buy these cards, and I can't do that because fucking TikTok influencer Joe Mama bought the entire fucking bought the entire vending machine. So now even my little slice of happiness is taken away from me. Like I don't want to discount that. So that's why my venom and my quite frankly, I don't use this word very often, my hatred towards these people is stronger than the suit because the suit is a suit. We've had suits when we had kings. We had suits when we had pharaohs. They will always be there. And we've had revolutions to overthrow them and good and bad has come of that. So I'm not thinking on that level. I'm thinking about the guy who just wanted to get a pack of cards and was screwed over by some fuck who's gonna go on TikTok live in the evening and charge $70 a pack because you might get the shiny card in it. So that was just my response to that. I don't want to dismiss what you said because it is correct and it is a real thing, but that's just why my vitriol goes towards that guy as opposed to the suit in Nintendo. So that's it. That was my response.
Yeah, definitely. If they're not doing it because it's a thing for them for the most part. They're definitely doing it to take advantage of the fact that people are willing to throw away their life savings on a piece of colorful paper with a piece of plastic in the middle of it. And again, it is a unethical thing. However, at the end of the day, like it's not, it's a choice that a person does make to indulge in their bad business practice, in the scalper's business practice, I should say. So if you are buying from a scalper and you know this person is a scalper, then you are a part of the problem, even if you are trying to enjoy the hobby and you
Yes, that
actually have true love of the hobby.
very good point.
So it's yeah, that's it. I'm done. Sorry.
Yeah, I just have one more thing to add. It's it's a it's an ecosystem, right? Wolf mentioned that they could easily produce more cards. Well, I speculate the reason why they don't want to do that is because it brings about the scalpers, in which that they do what they do to the masses, which will then acquire the cards from them, which will ultimately make those scalpers continue to buy in bulk, because these companies are looking at the bigger picture. If they produce more cards, there's not going to be any more of an incentive for like scalpers to really buy in bulk. So it's kind of like a situation where like um, the corpos are like crocodiles, and then like you have like the scalpers who are like birds picking from their teeth and whatnot, and then they just go about hunting all over again. It's kind of that same type of like atmosphere, and the biggest word that comes into mind when it comes to these things, or these people, is what they're surely lacking is integrity. There's no integrity amongst these people. They're not looking beyond the the lining of their pockets, and that's a big problem, unfortunately. So
And that's why shame is a good thing. These people should be shamed. I am not advocating for violence. I'm not saying dox them and burn their house to the ground, but shame them. Go on live streaming like, look at this piece of shit scalper. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Laugh at him. People should be shamed. We should bring back shaming. And
yeah,
I have no sympathy if they're shamed. Oh well. Good.
yeah, I
Sucks
shouldn't
to
be
suck.
I shouldn't be inciting violence as well.
No, I never
But
want anybody to be murdered
yeah.
or
Oh yeah, yeah,
hurt or
yeah.
hurt or killed.
Not that extreme. Yeah,
But if you should be shamed and you should feel bad about it.
yeah.
So with that being said, does any last words to death do you part? All right, I'm getting a resounding. I've said everything I have to say. Okay, so on that note, we hope you enjoyed our Black Pill in Gaming triple threat that we brought to you this evening. If you enjoy this type of content where we give you 3 separate articles and we just give a little our thoughts in rapid fire succession about each article, let us know, comment, let us know if you want more of this, and we will do more of this, more segments like this. We try to have a different variety of segments on our podcast, from tier list reviews to triple threat articles to one big article to opinion pieces about something that popped into one of our heads this morning. So we try to run the gambit. So if you like this, let us know. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We greatly appreciate your viewership and your listenership. And no matter how many of you listen to us to the end, we appreciate you listening to us at any point in time. So thank you for that. Um, the social media, we got them. Follow them. Pick the ones you like. We're on mostly all of them. Um, SO pretty much is putting different shorts and stream clips and all that good stuff on the different social medias, so make sure you check that out. Speaking of the stream, Mr. Esoteric also is our resident streamer here. He streams throughout the week. Usually it's Mondays and Fridays, but he'll throw in a impromptu stream at any given time if he's really feeling the game or he wants to beat a particular hard boss. So that's why you make sure to follow him, because he could be online at any point. Man was online at 5 a.m. a couple days ago. So this guy is like a firecracker. He'll be on at any point. But his streams are great. We have a small community. I always say it's small but mighty. We would love to have you join us and add to that. So, with all that being said, once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. We appreciate all our fans. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Till next time.